Good morning! Last week was a particularly fascinating week of sales conversations, both in the Sales Vault and in the Slack sales community. Let me share with you the top 3 things that really piqued my interest. One of them was hearing from people who say, I'm struggling to get to the next level. And I do a lot of coaching of younger salespeople. I talk about the sales fundamentals, calling on the right types of target markets, saying something of value, having a process, applying that process with diligence. But one of the things that you need to understand, in order to get to the next level, you need to challenge and fine-tune those same sales fundamentals. Don't overthink this. Simplify. Are you calling on the right kinds of accounts? Think back a few years, if you're a veteran sales rep, you were calling on a totally different type of person or totally different company, and the same is going to be said moving forward. You can't stay here. You will see your work, your book of business dwindle. You must constantly challenge the status quo. Think about those accounts that you are calling on. Where is your new target market going to emerge from? What are the new emerging markets? And a big question that I want to build on for my second point, which is, why do people buy from you? So the second thing to discuss here, if I asked you to describe the value that you bring, if I said, what's your differentiator? If I asked you, why should I buy from you? Could you put the answer into words clearly, accurately, and make it that, oh my gosh, of course I need that kind of an answer? Because that's really what you want. So my daughter Madeline, one of my 2 daughters who lives in London, my marketing genius daughter Maddie, she suggested that I listen to a podcast. The podcast is called Lenny's Podcast, and he interviews a woman named April Dunford, Dunford. She wrote a book called Obviously Awesome. And if you can get past her constant giggling, which drives me crazy, if you get past her giggling, it's a fascinating podcast because it talks about positioning. Positioning is, in the words of the author, positioning defines how your product is a leader at something a well-defined set of customers cares a lot about. This is not a value statement. This is not a marketing message. This is not a mission statement. She gives you a 10-step process, and she goes through all of it in the podcast, but I really recommend the book. It's a quick read. It's $10. And she was talking about something that I struggle with my Sales Vault. When someone says, what is it? I try to describe it in a way that I don't think really does it justice. I had a huge aha moment thanks to this book. I did the workshop, I did the steps, I went back over them again and again and again, and something dawned on me. It was like a lightning bolt. She said, Lenny said to her, how do you know when positioning works well? She said, it's like magic. And I felt it. I felt that magic. I highly recommend that you spend some time this week going out, listening to this podcast, and then reading the book. Why this week? Well, that's my third point. This is a hard week for some people, myself included. I work really well in a chaotic environment, but I work really poorly when it's quiet. And at the end of this week, we're going to start seeing people fly down to Cape Cod. We're about halfway between Boston and Cape Cod, and the people are just stacked up. The highway is going to be jammed, and it's going to be quiet. And then the beginning of next week, again, is going to be quiet. It drives me crazy. I don't function well in that environment. If you don't either, this is a great time to question things that you are doing, to look at the value that you are bringing, to go back over those basics. Maybe you can read a book. I've given you a podcast. I've given you a book. I've given you ways to sharpen the saw. And there's many, many more. There's some book recommendations on my website, as a matter of fact. It's SalesVault.pro. There's recommended reads. But you want to treat the end of this week and the beginning of next week, if you're not taking it off. If you are, that's great. Good for you. Hit them down the middle. But if you're not, then structure your weeks, your days at the end of this week and the beginning of next week, just like you would a busy sales day, and you will do a lot better. So that's it for this week. I will be here if you want to discuss your sales challenges. Otherwise, have a great selling week, have a great 4th of July week, and I'll talk to you in July.